playing the role of the hero, but is actually the villain. See, I apologize. He is a hero, but Bao's intentions confused me.
Okay, I don't know how to really take that. I get him confused.
What's really going on with Bryce and Zach is they have an old school reality TV alliance. My name's Pamela. I have a master's degree in mental health, and this is where psychology and Love Island meet. Zach and Bryce, they've clearly bonded. They think they're smarter than everyone else there. That's truly what I think. All their little conversations and their little inside jokes, kind of guys that are just, they really care about impressing each other. So I think that's what a lot of their collusion comes from. And I do think they keep calling out KC in these challenges to try to cause havoc in his relationship with Anaya, because they sure as shit don't give a flying about Anaya. If anybody is pretending to be something they're not, it's their homeboy, Sinclair. Okay, but Sinclair doesn't need any help making himself look like a fuck. He's doing that all on his own. But I think they're intimidated by KC and Anaya, and they're trying to take them out so they can be the two strongest couples. And then at the end of the day, let the chips fall where they may. They are in an alliance. That is truly, honestly, what I think. And also, they saw that it worked once so well during the hot dog eating challenge when they called out KC and said he wanted to explore Seoul, and Anaya took it a type of way, and it really fucked with her head. They did it again in this challenge. She didn't show as much of a reaction, so Trinity had to come up and be like, I know we've had our hearts to heart. She only said that to get under Anaya's skin. She's trying to with Anaya's head. That's what they're doing, because Trinity and Bryce and Zach and Kata want to be the strongest couple, so they're focusing on dropping these little jabs at KC and Anaya, which Anaya, unfortunately, she responds to, and that's also why I think they're doing it. Had she ignored it, they might have taken a different tack, but I guess because Anaya maybe has been burned in the past by people pretending to like her but really just wanting something, she's susceptible to this, unfortunately. I don't think they're her friends. I don't think they're calling out KC because they give up about Anaya. I think they're trying to fuck up that couple so they can be the strongest couple. And whether or not KC is sincere or isn't sincere, it doesn't matter, because they're not telling her because they care about her well-being. They're telling her because they want to sabotage that connection, because they don't want them in the top 3 couples or whatnot. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you guys think.
Y'all, I need to say the thing that we all know has been happening around this season. KC gets called a villain, but the 2 people who've actually been running this entire season from the shadows, pulling strings, whispering in ears, and twisting words, Zach and Bryce, and behind them the whole time, making sure things play out exactly how they wanted us to see it, the production team, are the real villains. And we can throw Sincere in there as well. I'm gonna get into it. I want you to like, please share, and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts about this video down in the comments. Sorry. Let's get into this video. Let's start with Zach. So from day one, Zach has been, telling Kata that he's locked in on her. She is his person, while telling the boys, still talking about how he wants to explore and all that. Remember in the start of the show that when the bombshells came in, he told them that he was closed off, damn near closed off with Kata, and he wasn't interested in exploring anymore. And he told Kata that as well. And then the next day he took it back, because I think production probably spoke to him about exploring, and then we saw him have the dry conversation with Jen. And then he didn't explore anyone else after that until, Casa Amor. And then there were, challenges. And then after the challenge, him and Kata were rewarded with an intimate session in the hideaway. And after they got intimate, one of the first things out of his mouth asking Kata was if she'd be upset if he went and explored other connections right after that. So that's kind of started to show us, where Zach is this entire time. But we have to admit that Kata was the one that kind of forced that whole intimate session, because he did not want to. But we see him getting mad at Kata. We see him withholding breakfast because the boys were pissed that the girls sent home Gabe. The boys were pissed at that. So Zach has been showing some misogynistic behavior, and nobody has really clocked him for that, even as going as far as telling Kata that he loves Kata, and he took it back the next day when they were on the dock talking, saying he was a joke. And that's after they were doing it in bed too. Like Kata is smitten by that man. She's gone, and I think Zach knows it. So all he has to do is just go to as close to the edge as possible, and then just take things back from Kata. That's been going on, in my opinion. And then why would Zach kiss Charlie's quote-unquote ex, essentially? I think he was really looking forward to having his moment in Casa and maybe not even coming back to Kata, you know? And because the girl didn't really tickle his fancy like that, and what's her name, she dated his brother, and then he probably just remembered gameplay. But anyways, what I really want to talk about when it comes to Zach is one half of the reason Casey and Anaya's relationship fell apart the way it did. Every single time Casey and Anaya had an honest conversation and actually worked something out between them, it was Zach who did something in the challenge. I forgot the exact, I think it was a challenge where they had to pour the slime on somebody, and the question was, you know, like who was the hero for something, or who wasn't going about things honestly the way they should, or something of the sort. And he picked KC, and his explanation, and Zach in that challenge, Zach was the only one who had to explain himself, and Zach said that he just thinks that KC is just playing it safe and not exploring with Saul. And then after that challenge, him and Kata sat Anaya down, and they continued to plant that seed of doubt that KC really wanted to explore Saul and was using Anaya as his safe option. That's completely where Anaya got the entire thing about being used as KC's safe option. That's from Zach. If Zach didn't spin things and said it that way, Anaya would never be thinking that. And immediately after that conversation, she got up and she went to interrupt KC and Saul as they were speaking. And that is where Zach should be held responsible for planting that seed. And that's giving villain, in my opinion. Because remember that Zach and Bryce are very good friends in the villa. And Bryce, in my opinion, was recruited by production to be part of the next Nicolandria, right? But the moment where I feel like Zach was really working with production is because of the specific question that Zach got, and the host only asked Zach to explain the reasoning why. And that's what Zach said. And that led to further problems between Casey and Anaya. And Casey didn't know where all of this was coming from. He didn't know where Anaya was getting this information about being a safe space and constantly questioning their connection. And that's what led to KC being annoyed and not wanting to argue anymore, and literally like just shutting down on their connection, and drained from Zach. That one thing. And Zach and Bryce, I strongly feel that they decided to work together because KC and Anaya were in the top 4 with them. And they know especially Zach, from watching Love Island, the power of a black couple together. Let's be honest now on Love Island, which brings me to the lie that Bryce told Trinity. But before we're gonna get into that lie though, Bryce was interested in exploring something with Kata, as we saw on the show. And Saul came out and said that Bryce tried to explore with Kata multiple times and he got shut down. And we saw Kata reject him on the show twice. When she didn't pick him, when we went on their date, and they were in the bed, all 3 of them in that big bed, and she chose Zach, and Bryce wanted to get in on it, and he was told to move, and she picked Kata picked Zach over Bryce, and then he tried again, and that's the 3rd time we saw him being rejected on camera. So Zach has been interested in Kata, right? And he got coupled up with Trinity by default. So he was exploring. He was trying to explore with Kata after, they got coupled up. Finally, after, the challenge where they stood on the red dot, on the green dot. After that, they recoupled again, right? And Trinity and Bryce ended up together by default because Trinity and Bryce, remember, both of them opted to step on the red dot, and they went on separate dates. And Gabe coupled up with Beatrice. Zach coupled up with Kata, leaving Trinity and Bryce by themselves, and they got recoupled by default. And before I even get into the lie, I need to mention this because in season 7, people chose who they were interested in challenges. That's the main point of doing challenges on Love Island, is that you get the opportunity to show interest in the people who you want to show interest in, to let them know, oh hey, I fancy you. That's the purpose of a challenge, right? But for this season, we specifically saw that they kept the couples together, at least in the beginning, before people started complaining about the challenges being boring, because they're still being in their same couples, playing it safe. They were all playing it safe. Why did production allow them to stay in their same couples and not pick and choose who they wanted to go into the challenges with? You know, they didn't get that choice, and the challenges were set up for them to just continue to pick their partners. That's also, to me, like a clue that production was really trying to control things, because they needed to have some sort of control there in order to not let it get out of, because us as the viewers, remember last year how we peeped Nick and Alandra, because Nick kept on picking Alandra for every single challenge. He kept on picking Alandra for every single challenge. So that's making me think, you know, like, why didn't they allow more power to the Islanders for picking whoever they wanted to pick in these challenges? That's questionable to me. Anyways, let's go on to the part of the lie. Right? Bryce caused real damage. The reason Trinity completely flipped on KC, because remember, Trinity was Team KC. She was always the one who was the voice of reason when it came to Anaya, because Anaya was hearing things from Bryce, making her doubt her connection with KC, and Trinity was over on the other side talking sense into Anaya, saying, girl, she don't think it's that deep. Talk to him. Give him a chance. Hear him out. Da 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 da. That's what Trinity was saying to Anaya. She was Team KC. But in the kitchen, KC made the offhand comment about the top 4 coupling, about who hadn't explored, right? KC said that he would have been tight if he wasn't voted in top 4. And then Bryce, him and Anaya, Zach and Kata, and then Bryce said something to the effect of, so what about us? Me and Trinity, we stayed coupled up. And KC said, yeah, you have, but you almost explored some shit. That's what KC said. And the scene carried on. Then we saw Bryce talking to Zach, and he told Zach that KC alluded to him and Trinity not being strong enough or should have been in the top 4 or something like that. And then when Bryce got to Trinity and told Trinity, he told Trinity that KC said that they shouldn't be in the top 4. They didn't deserve to be in the top 4 because of him exploring and whatever. That's not how KC said it. That's not how he meant it. But it got misconstrued by the time it got to Trinity from Bryce. But after Trinity heard that, that's when she switched up on KC. She became one of the loudest and angriest attackers because of that one lie. And she became Anaya's attack dog, talking smack behind KC's back in the dressing room. That one lie. And I remember, I can't remember what it is specifically, but there was also another challenge where Bryce picked KC, and I think it had something to do with slime again or something, but he picked KC for this challenge. And in that challenge as well, he said something to plant the seed of doubt. I would have to go back to it. You guys can let me know about it in the comments. I don't want to go back to these episodes because yeah, I don't want to go back to these episodes, but he said something again. So stuff like this kept on happening, and they would, Bryce and Zach are the ones. You see how last year Ace would go around talking to everyone, finding out what was happening in everyone's couple, right? Because he was working with production, so they needed to know what was happening. Him and Taylor. So Taylor and Ace last year are the same as Zach and Bryce this year, doing the dirty work of production, because the production needs to create a villain. So every challenge and throughout the season, we saw them sprinkling things into Anaya's ear, talking to KC, finding out how KC felt about him and Saul, and he expressed that he wanted to explore. And then after Anaya and KC would work out, and KC would tell Anaya, I want to explore Saul. Me and you are good. You are my number 1, but I'm still gonna explore. And they would tell Anaya things, and Anaya would get pissed at KC all over again. So that's why KC said he's busy fixing things that he thinks aren't broken or isn't broken, and that he's working, he have to face Anaya's past traumas that have nothing to do with him. But unbeknownst to KC, the reason why Anaya keeps on coming to him every time, complaining and whining, is because of what Zach and Bryce have been telling Anaya in her ear, behind her back. So KC and Anaya would have been able to work things out. Even though they are incompatible, they would have been able to figure things out in their connection, in my opinion, if Zach and Bryce didn't meddle. So people want to make KC into the villain, but he is actually not. They manipulated KC and Anaya's relationship with deliberate misinformation, being messy. And it was purely because Bryce didn't like what KC said about them not being in the top 4, them being in the top 4, and him exploring. That's it. And in all of this, Trinity and Kata, they got used as pawns as well in the whole thing. we saw the scene where Bryce and Zach were laughing after Trinity was doing their dirty work by attacking KC. And Kata being loyal to Zach in that moment when she was sitting down and talking to Anaya, and them telling Anaya, you know, about KC wanting to explore Saul. But Anaya already knew that, because KC wasn't lying about wanting to explore. And Kata also became an attack dog for Anaya for those things. So I strongly think for those reasons, Zach and Bryce are the real villains. They worked together with production. That's their whole job, you know, to produce the show. But us as fans, we have caught on to the editing. We have caught on to their tricks. This season, it is so clear and apparent. It has been so clear and apparent. And also because Ace from season 7 came out and literally almost admitted that there were influences behind the scenes. That's what he would refer to production as. Influences, certain influences. So production is definitely part of the scheme that Todd set up to come to us with the BS. And we can clearly see that they want Bryce and Trinity to win. So my predictions coming through will be Trinity and Bryce as the winners. Anaya and Carl are maybe going to be runner-up. And the next spot is going to be Kenzie and what's his name? Dylan is going to be in there, and maybe Melanie and Sincere if because people love Melanie. So Sincere is going to get to go to the final simply because of Melanie. He's going to have his redemption arc, right? And KC and what's her name? Tierra, they're going to be in the top 5, but that vote for the final is going to not include KC because people have it out for him. So he's not going to be in it. And the white audience will want somebody to root for, even though I think many of them don't like Kenzie, but Kenzie has to be in there for the diversity of it all, for it to look a certain way. So let me know your thoughts about all of that down in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you see things differently? Let's talk about it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, please like, please share, please subscribe, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Oh, and I'm gonna link a video right about here where Zach and his brother Charlie talking about Nicolandria. So it's not far-fetched that Bryce and Zach would be working together, because Zach purely got on the show because of Charlie, and that probably was the agreement for him to work with production. Clock it. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.